I'm going to try and give you a little bit of education this evening on a chap called Percy Pilcher. Give me a little hand show if you've heard of Percy Pilcher. Excellent. Oh, right, okay. So with any luck, we're going to give you a little bit more information about why he was here and how he got to be here, and a bit of history about his kind of flight, his journey. So I'm going to start off by just tell you a little bit about myself, so that you know I'm not a complete random person that's, well, I'm making it up a bit, but you know, we'll have a little look. Hopefully, if I press this button, I'll unfreeze it. Can you see the screen?
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar.
I just want to say thank you to the History Society, Susan and Helen, to Vicky as well, the friends out there that should know better and shouldn't really be here tonight because you're forced to listen to me for an hour. Books by Philip Jarrett. Is Philip Jarrett here by any chance? Okay, that's good. I have maybe used a couple of photographs that, you know. But he's a real amazing chap who's written a lot of stuff about Percy Pilcher. I've got to thank the internet as well, because without the internet, you know, we wouldn't be able to do those deep dives, and local knowledge. Talking to quite a few people over the years has helped me. I've been an Eynsford resident since 1981. That is me there on my little push bike at about 12 years old. That's me. What year was it, lovely? 2022. Yes, that's right. 2022 in the church, marrying my lovely wife Amanda. So yeah, been here for a little while. I just have to freeze it just in case I should go onto a slide that we don't want to show you. Oh no, you can see that one. Run the local running club. We began for about 10 years. That's grown and grown and grown. So we've now got about 65 members. So from about 3 people, we've done quite well over the years. In fact, one of our founding members, James, are you here tonight? Yeah. Mr. Stannerland, where are you? Yeah, there he is. So one of the originals. And I've been a medic with London Ambulance Service since 2018, which has been interesting, a bit of a career change later on in life. In fact, one of my colleagues is here tonight as well. So that's is there a bit more about me? Oh yes, so I do have an interest in aviation, which I'll tell you a little bit more about, but if ever I see a helicopter landing, I'm rushing out to go and see what type of helicopter it is. I have got some hours on a little private plane, I've got some hours on a helicopter. I don't have a helicopter licence or a plane licence, but I do have another licence which I'll tell you about in a second. I have a paragliding pilot's licence. What's a paraglider? You're going to find out a bit later on, so I'll talk a bit more about that. But basically, it's a glider, and it's this kind of thing that if Percy had one of these back all those years ago, he'd be super successful. Paragliders are fairly new pieces of kit, very efficient wings. You can see it's a wing, and we hang underneath it and we look for thermals. Unless you've got a motor on the back, you may have seen buzzing around in the summer, you see paramotors, which is something that I'm going to try and upgrade to Ultrachuck in the future. Another way to potentially break your legs. So I have got some experience in flying. Why am I interested in Percy Pilcher? I had a chat with a lovely chap called Peter G back in 1992. My father was in the RAF, and I've had PPO lessons in a plane and a helicopter. Last year, I actually clocked 50 hours airborne. I went on EasyJet, I went on Ryanair, so love flying. Used to do some historical cycle tours, so I used to take people out on push bikes and go around local areas and talk about historical things in Eynsford. Took paragliding lessons in 2012, gained my club pilot licence in 2014 and crashed the same year. Really had a serious crash, which is on YouTube. Luckily someone filmed it, and I kind of went, you know what, I need to stop this because I'll probably kill myself. And at the time, I think my son was about 10 years old. So, you know, I have been up since, but it's quite dangerous. We're going to have a little bit of an interactive moment now. Percy was a pioneer, a real genuine bona fide pioneer. And I want you to think about pioneers, and we're going to see if we can name some pioneers. So it's interactive. You've got to see if you can fill in the blanks as they come along. Neil? Okay. Nicola? Yes. Robert? Falcon? Scott? Edmund? Yes. Now, James? Cook? It's not the Jameses that say Amelia? Yes. Charles? Darwin? Yeah, somewhere. Florence? Nightingale? Absolutely. Alexander? Fleming? Same sort of line. Albert? Ray? Ray Kroc? No? We'll come back to that. Elon Musk. Anyone know Ray Kroc? Ray Kroc. Any ideas? Okay, I'll give you an idea. He was a milkshake machine salesman. That's what he did. He used to sell McDonald's. Ray Kroc was a pioneer behind McDonald's. Massively successful company. But have a little look. He basically sold milkshake machines and found a restaurant. I won't go into. You can look him up on the internet, but there's a pioneer. So these are all well-known people that we look up to. So who was Percy Pilcher? I've got a wonderful book written by Philip Jarrett. I can read you all the stuff there, but I'm going to paraphrase it and I'm going to try and keep it a little bit simple. Percy Sinclair Pilcher was born in 1866 in Bath. His mother was Scottish. Scotland would play a major part in the development of his career as an engineer, as well as his passion for flying. After serving as a Royal Naval cadet for 7 years, from the age of 14, he became an apprentice with the shipbuilders Randolph, Elder and Company, based at Govan in Glasgow. And those were the days when apprenticeships in the shipyards of the Clyde provided one of the best starts in engineering that anyone could have. Glasgow, like many other major industrial cities of Scotland and Northern England, was a city of engineers, and recognition of their skills and contribution to the wealth of the nation helped establish engineering as a study in its own right. Within a few years, Percy was showing a keen interest in aviation. He was fascinated with sails, sailing, and he did some stuff a bit later on in his life to do with sailing and sailboats. He tried to develop funky sails that looked like big umbrellas. And he was delivering lectures on the topic at the University College London. He returned to Glasgow in 1891 to teach naval architecture, but by that time it was clear that his heart lay in exploring the possibilities of flight. From reading the literature available and publishing papers of his own, Pilcher progressed to building his first glider in 1895 with the help of his sister, Ellen. And I'll talk a bit more about Ellen, because she was a really important person in his life. During the summer, he produced 3 versions of his glider, which I'll talk about in a bit. The Bat, a replica of which is now in the Glasgow Riverside Museum. Test flights were carried out in Kelvin Grove in Glasgow. I'll show you some pictures later. And Pilcher made several flights in Cardross in Scotland in versions 2 and 3 of the Bat. And he was becoming the first person in the UK to show that flights could be repeatedly and successfully done in heavier than air flying machines. And as with all science, repeatability was an important part of the exercise, continuing to go up and fly again and again. There were a few worldwide aviators at this time, a handful. I really mean this, a handful of people. And Pilcher's work brought him into contact with the German expert in gliders Otto Lilienthal and Frenchman Octave Canute. We'll touch on their subject later. And they wrote to each other and shared information, and those exchanges inspired Pilcher to develop some new glider designs, the Beetle and the Gull, which were built in around 1895-96. And the incredible dedication of Percy and Ella to the task of designing and building gliders. Neither of these designs wholly satisfied Pilcher, and it was his original back glider that would be the basis for his most successful glider, the Hawk, which we'll come on to. So that was Pilcher. I'll give you got a little timeline here. So born in Bath, 16th of Jan, 5th and last child of Thomas Webb. He was sent to see the Admirals, that's what they called it then. Trained on the Britannia at Dartmouth, a fascination for wind dynamics, went to the West Indies, Nova Scotia and up to Quebec. 1885 first glider, lectured at UCL, 1996, 1896-7 in Eynsford, 1889 he died. Sorry, was that a spoiler alert? He does die. And we'll come on to talk a bit more about that. I did say earlier on, so, as I'm going on, you might think, I've got some questions, and, by all means, you can save them for a bit later if you want. So if there's something burning that you want to ask me later, I'll try and answer them. And like I said, I'm not an absolute expert, but we'll do our best. There's always Google. So we'll have a go. That was a joke. So let's have a little look. So this is Octave Canute, 1832 to 1910. Now he's a Frenchman, and he became interested in aviation after watching a balloon ascend in Illinois in 1856. They were demonstrating balloon flights. And he retired from his railroad career in 1883, and he devoted leisure time to furthering the new science of aviation. He applied his engineering background, and Canute collected all available data from flight experimentation from around the world, and he combined it with his knowledge that he gathered as a civil engineer. And he published his findings in a series of articles in the Railroad and Engineering Journal from 1891 to 1893. You can imagine who read that. It would have been Pilcher. And they were republished in an influential book, Progress in Flying Machines. There he is on Miller Beach in Indiana, 1896, throwing himself off of a sand dune, and he would have got a little bit of air for a little bit of time, but not for very long. These machines were very heavy, bamboo, very, very heavy. They obviously didn't have nylon in those days, so very heavy bits of kit. Our next chap, Otto Lilienthal, 1848 to 1896. It's quite a short period. Wonder what happened to him. Another one died, flying, attempted to fly. So this German, his work led to developing the concept of the modern wing. And you can actually, if you have a look at that glider, that is quite a modern shape. You've got that lovely wing shape where we're getting lift. And you can see it's quite far off the ground. His attempts in 1891 are seen as the beginning of human flight. And he's considered he was the first person to sort of produce aeroplanes. And he actually had a production facility, of which the name here is so long I can't read it. It was the Maschinen and Fabrik manufacturing place in Berlin, and it was the first airplane production company in the world. And he's been referred to as the father of aviation and the father of flight. So he really did have a massive influence on Pilcher. And there's another person that I just want to have a quick talk about, which we'll come on to a bit later on. This is Walter Gordon Wilson, 1874 to 1957. He was interested in powered flight, and he collaborated with Percy and another chap called the Honourable Adrian Verney, Cave, later Lord Bray, and they attempted to make an aero engine in 1898, a little bit earlier actually, and that was a flat twin air-cooled engine. Incidentally, Walter Wilson had done a little bit of work with a chap called Royce. I don't know if you know that name at all. So he had a really great engineering background. So he produced this wonderful flat twin air-cooled engine that weighed about 40 pounds. And I'll talk a little bit more about him later. But he switched later on to developing car called the Wilson Pilcher motor car. So it was a joint adventure. Joint after Pilcher's death. That's when this car was really developed. That launched in 1900. And it was remarkable because it was either a flat 4 or flat 6 engine. Very well balanced. And that one there was valued at auction recently for about £250,000. In working condition. I think it had a recent MOT. That was handy. I'm joking. Right, so Octave Canoe. Now we'll talk about Ellie Pilcher, his sister. Really important person for Percy. She followed him everywhere. She was his right-hand woman. They decided in 1895 to make full-size prototypes of what they called a soaring machine. Percy did the design, carpentry, the tensioning, and Ella, of course, was in charge of the fabric. They called the first glider the Bat, and began flying at Cardross, farmland to the west of Glasgow, in the summer of 1895. And by September that year, taking advantage of long university vacations, Ella and Percy had modified the Bat to a point where it could carry one of them aloft for 30 seconds. Now they're actually at Glasgow in that picture. And you probably recognise the tenement blocks of Glasgow. She moved to London when Percy was invited to join someone who I'll talk about a bit later. And she helped him all the time. She oversaw the installation and operation of rope pulley systems that Percy would use. And it's very, very likely that she actually was the first woman to fly. But it was never recorded. So there aren't any pictures of Ella flying, and no actual recording of Ella flying that I can find. She was once quoted when he did a show on the 20th of June. Douglas Archibald quoted, he said, "I hope I may be permitted to remark that Mr. Pilcher has been fortunately blessed with the possession of a sister, who not only acted as the presiding goddess of the tea table on the present occasion, but actually made most of the wing surfaces with her own hands." So, she was recognised, just never recorded to actually fly. So his sister was really important person. So let's have a little look at some of these old planes. So this is Percy and Ella with the back. Now this is their first sort of production, and this was folded down and assembled wherever they could find someone to fly. And Percy would sort of sit in the section in the middle, or not sit, he would hang, run off the hill, try and get a little bit of lift out of it. Not their favourite machine. The Bat, so weighed about 44 pounds, wingspan of approximately 150 square foot. Just kind of remember those numbers if you can, because they become relevant a bit later on. But you can see that wing shape, it's too high. It's not quite going to fly. It's got no proper tailplane on there. But they modified it. This is the Bat 2.3. You can see now there's a tailplane on the back to give you that little bit more stability. Now what Percy's doing here, it's a great photo. You think, oh, what's going on? Actually, he's flying that as a kite. So he's gone down the hill, and then he's waited for the wind to lift the glider, and he's walking back up the hill. So it had great lift for flying as a kite. As soon as you got in it, you didn't quite have the same lift. But he did make a few, semi-successful flights with that. Then he went on to something called the Beetle. Now he built this machine with engines in mind, because you can see at the top there, a big strut. And he's thinking about putting engines on there and a propeller. But he said that it was unmanageable. That plane was, they kind of did it and went, no, this is ridiculous, it's too much for me. So he ditched the idea. 80 pounds with 170 square foot, so a little bit bigger, but heavier. Not big enough. And the Gull, winter of 1895, 55 pounds, wingspan of 300 square foot. Did get some success with this one, but not always, because he crashed it a few times. So think about the timing here, how long ago this was. Think about how many people were doing this in the world. Only actually 3 or 4 people. So really, this guy was really ahead of his time. Let's have a little look at the next frame. So I talked about Lilienthal, and he had a glider called the number 1. And what they did is they were sharing ideas. And Lilienthal said, do you know what? Do you want to have a look at my plans, Percy, for my glider number 1? Of course, I'd love to see that. So Lilienthal shared his plans with Percy. And now you can see the similarities between these two vehicles. Very, very similar. Look at the lovely swept wing. It's going to get lift. Nice big wingspan. They almost look the same. One's French, one's British. And that's how they really respected each other and share their ideas of it and try and make the most of it. So this is the famous Hawk. So this is the one that he built in December 1895-96. Wingspan 180 square foot, weight 50 pounds. He's got it right now. It's a bit lighter, got a bigger wingspan. It's actually got undercarriage. And that undercarriage has got suspension built into it, which is phenomenal. Suspension built there, and again, he's got that lovely strut there, not just for strength, but he's thinking, I might be able to put an engine in this. Or, you know, if we can glide, we can get power, and we can go a bit further. 1895-96. Can anyone tell me when the Wright brothers first flew?
7th of 17th,
7th of 17th, 1903. Absolutely right. So 1903 was when we saw powered flight. Percy was already looking at powered flight. So, you know, we're going on the right lines, aren't we? We're on the right track for a pioneer of aviation. Now, someone did say to me, because Percy was born in Eynsford. I said, no, he wasn't born in Eynsford. He wasn't really an Eynsford resident, apart from when he slept at the barn. How did Percy come to be in Eynsford? What's the connection? Very, very important now. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Has anyone heard of Hiram or Hiram? Jerry, is it Hiram or Hiram?
I say Hiram.
You say Hiram, I say Hiram. So, Hiram Stevens Maxim. 5th of February 1840, 24th of November 1916. He was an American-born British inventor, best known as the creator of the first automatic machine gun. I've just remembered a lovely fact. So he was an inventor that came up with patents on things like mechanical devices like hair curling, irons, a mouse trap, steam pumps, and even laid claim to inventing the light bulb, which Chuck knows isn't true. But one of the things that he was at dinner one day with his friends, and he was saying, I've got all these inventions, but I'm not really making a lot of money out of them. His friend said, well, what you need to do is you need to make something that kills people, because that is where the money is. And they were right. He invented the machine gun, and he made a fortune. Just make something that people want to kill. I mean, that's madness. But Maxim moved from the United States to the United Kingdom at the age of 41 and remained an American citizen until he became a naturalised British citizen in 1899. He received a knighthood in 1901. Another slide, you can just check whether I've got something. Oh, yes, okay. He experimented with powered flight. He was one of these chaps who's like, yes, I can definitely fly, without a doubt. So this is one of the contraptions that Maxim built. It was just ginormous. His large aircraft designs were never successful. But he did make a very successful amusement ride called the Captive Flying Machine to fund his research while generating public interest. And to this day, if you go to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, there is still Maxim's flying machine. You can sit on it, it's like a big gyratory thing, and you can go and fly in a Maxim's machine. Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So the connection. He would have been writing to Percy. I'm not sure, actually, if Percy's in this picture. I can't really tell if anyone can. It could be, really could be. In 1889, he rented a place in Baldwin's Park. It's called Baldwin Park Mansion in Bexley. Has anyone ever heard of Baldwin's Park Mansion? So Baldwin's Park Mansion is the site of the old Bexley Mental Institution. But the house is actually still there to this day. And he rented this house, and he was experimenting with his flying machine on rails. There's another reason why he was there, to do with his connection with Vickers, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And I'll show you his wonderful, what he used to do. So this is Baldwin's Park, and there's his flying machine. And it was on rails, and he used to fire these massive engines up, and they used to push it, and it would go down these rails, and it sort of bounce around a little bit, and they'd go, look, it's taking off, it's flying. It wasn't flying, it was just bouncing on these rails, and they'd be convinced it was, the Prince of Wales used to go and witness these experiments. They drew huge crowds. It's the only thing of its kind going on in England at the time, so it was fascinating, and it was a great way of him getting sponsorship. In 1896, Pilcher was employed by Maxim as his chief assistant. That's the connection. They've been talking to each other, been going to dinners. Pilcher was always looking for funding, because to do what he was doing cost him around about £20,000 a year. A lot of money in those days. So he had to get funders. Maxim was kind of one of those guys. Got him in as his chief assistant. Might be another picture I can just quickly show you. Yeah, let's go back to you can see the rows there with that flying machine. So Maxim, very quickly, the connection. Why was he in this area? So 1888, the Maxim Nordfeldt Guns and Ammunition Company was the result of a takeover by hiring Maxim of Fornston Nordfeldt's Guns and Ammunition Company. 1888, the site at Austin Lodge was leased from Lullystone Estate by hiring Maxim as a firing range for the Maxim Nordfeldt Gun and Ammunition Company, based at Crayford and used for the development of the Maxim machine gun. If you probably know about the firing ranges in Eynsford, this is the start. Maxim started it all off. So he had a firing range, and that aeroplane I showed you, the patent on that in 1889, moved his hangar. What he did is he went, right, do you know what? I've got this hangar at my park, literally attached to the side of his house. I'm going to move it. So he dismantled the hangar and he moved it to Austin Lodge. He said, Percy, you can have a bit of space here. There's a hangar, and you can develop your gliding machines for me and kind of for you. And that was in 1894. So I said, Percy was his assistant. In 1897, Maxim's company went into difficulties and was brought by Vickers. It was the Vickers Maxim machine gun. And in 1911, Maxim left the company, which just became Vickers. And Vickers is an incredibly successful business. So Maxim, does that all make sense? Yeah, that's the connection. Hiram Hiram Maxim. He named his son after Percy Pilcher, and his son went on to invent the silencer for guns. He was the inventor of the silencer. His father always got credit for it. Rented Baldwin's Park, personal hangar moved to Eynsford, and Pilcher employed as his chief assistant. So, the Eynsford connection is there. Percy really was only in Eynsford for about a year. Wasn't here for that long, really that kind of summer, because you had to do your flying in the summer, 1887. Occasionally, and I'm kind of assuming this, he would have, because it's not really recorded, but he would have been staying, wouldn't he, at Baldwin's Park, you know, living with his sponsor. And I'm sure he must have slept in that hangar a few times on some, you know, late nights. Most of his Eynsford flying took place in the summer of 1897. His longest flight was the 20th of June. Saw him to 70 foot and 150 yards in front of scientists and photographers, which we've got some great pictures of. And in 1898, he was engine testing. And these engines were a real thing. They were building them for a plane design that he'd come up with. So again, ahead of his time. But the 20th of June 1897, that's the date where they got a lot of sponsors along, a lot of photographers, lots of people came to Austin Lodge to witness this wonderful vision of gliding across the valley. Where was it in Austin Lodge? Let's have a look. So it was there. But that's not a fantastic picture. I'm not sure when this dates back to. Susan, you've probably been, I don't know. It's quite an old map. But there was a hill there we used to take off from. We're going to go into more detail in a minute, called the Knob. That was where Percy did a lot of his flying from. You can see now the topography of the hill. I've got a laser pointer. But he would fly across that valley. It depends on the direction of the wind. He'd go one side or the other. It always depended on the wind direction, obviously. This is my fantastic, up-to-date, high-tech. I mean, I'm sure Percy had vehicles just like that. And there was always this thing about where was the hangar? And the hangar got misplaced, and was it there? We know where the hangar was, and I've done a lot of research to pinpoint the hangar. There is actually, interestingly, where the Percy Pilcher Memorial is, which I'll show you some pictures of later, there's a walkway that you go up. Has anyone visited the memorial? Yeah? As you're walking up the path, you're actually walking up the flight path of Percy Pilcher. He would have flown kind of towards you. It's lovely to think that. And there's the hangar. So what I decided to do was take it even more up to date. And I've now marked the hangar on Google Maps. So you could do that. You can put things onto Google. So now the hangar is now a historical site of Percy Pilcher's workshop. So if you wanted to go and see exactly where his hangar was, you get your phone out, you get your maps out, and you go and stand in exactly that point. And there's nothing there. There's a lovely new building slightly next door to it, but it's just kind of a bit of an empty field. Because the hangar was dismantled and sold. It was the G's that did it, wasn't it? There's Mr. G. Yeah, it's your fault. No hangar there anymore. Let's see what my next slide is. But here is the hangar, and that's the Hawk in its original finless form outside Maxim's hangar in Eynsford in Kent in 1896. So this is the interesting picture. In this picture on the right, Ryle G, Grandad, not mine, John's, is seen in front of the shed and workshop that he purchased from Percy Pilcher when he left Upper Oxley Lodge. It was purchased obviously from here in Maxim. And apparently that parts of that hangar are still next door to the old G's store in Eynsford, which is now the hairdressers, Olivia's. And the hangar